I want to introduce a myth. Tubazana, siyabonga ngisaphila. I want to introduce a myth. The reason about it is we have an identity crisis. Sabantu. We need to be very clear in admitting this. We need to admit it. We need to accept that the situation is bad. Very bad. So there is an identity crisis, and ibona kakhulu especially le genge le isizukulwane salaba abathunjwa. Ngoba phela kwathunjwa abantu la eAfrika bahamba bayosetshenziswa ku-Caribbean, ko-Brazil, kobani bani ukuthi babe yiqela. And ekuthunjweni kwabo kwaqinisekiswa futhi nokuthi i-identity yabo ukuzazi nomlando wabo kuyacinywa. You know. And lento ithi iqala ngokuthi bathathiswe amagama esingisi, thathelwe amagama esiPutukezi ini. So there was an erasure and a disconnect. Ukuthatha umuntu ekhaya kubo umhlomale ezihlahleni and make sure ukuthi they never go back there. Essentially, you will erase that person and their memory, because the generation elandelayo has no, and and if you've been following this channel for a long time and without subscribing, I suggest that you do, because there is going to be a time where yonke lento mayisabuluka umqondo ubuya, you might want to go back, because I talk about a lot of things much earlier on, and these are videos from 4 or 5 years ago that you might need to go back to. There's things that are coming to the fore now, and this is coming out that these people are realizing, including izinto ezifana nama-vampire here. I talked about him, Mgevu. You people don't even understand ukuthi Mgevu, ama-vampire. There's a name for them. Yes, because we know them, siyabas, and they're still around, hovering. Ngihlangana nayo nje, angicabanga ukuthi abantu nini kanti sekuyimGevu. But something happened somewhere. Ingakho ngithi I want to introduce this mythology ngoba kukhulu kunilahlekele, not just ulwazi, not just i-campus ukuthi niyithole ukuthi kambe nensuka kuphi niya kuphi. There is a consciousness and a spirit that was taken out, and ngaphandle kwayo you are on this planet without any direction, without any sense of purpose. Anizazi nisukaphi, anazi ukuthi niyaphi, nixakekile, nifuna lokhu. But what is good is that we are now on this mission trying to uncover. So I'm introducing that myth because, we are born ukuthi yakhaleleka. And the other thing was, if you go back, you'll also discover, which I talk about different beings as well, because we must be clear as a matter. We are not alone. We've never been alone on this planet. Abelungu assume or pretend as if it's a question, are we alone? Bafuna ama-aliens born. Akuma aliens. Whatever the beings that are going to show up or aziveze manje are the same beings that have been working behind the veil. Aziveze buyesibili, because before they were among us, sibas. And I keep telling you ukuthi umuntu who had a particular purpose and a specific function wafanele ayifeze emhlabeni, wakhetha ukwenza uthando yena. Ngoba sithemba nisaphila lapha eKapa. Ndakhetha ukwenza lokhu kuthandwa yini, sanikhombisa kunina-ke lezi y'ngane ngoba izingane kahle kahle sibadala kunazo. Sanikhombisa unina-ke iy'ngane zagcina futhi sezikhanda abantu bazo bafike banikhombisa-ke even worse, banihlukumeza, banenza worse things you can imagine. So you must understand i-existence yomuntu in that context yokuthi awuqhibukanga emhlabeni wawedwa. You've always been surrounded by other beings zikanye nathi. And there's a lot of pretending that's going on. There's a lot of misdirection, nama expression angesiwona, you know, cashwe ngethuba kanti it's a damn same people just by different names. And wena-ke inkinga yakho ukuthi something happened to you and your memory just vanished. Sengazi ukuthi you just came on this planet. Kanti wena umuntu oqala la. Everywhere they go, mabethi bayamba, bafica wena. Isiqu sakho, bafica amathemba akho, bafica amathemba okuhlobkhulu. So let's talk to that myth about who is black and what is a black person and where did it come from. What is this magical being? So I'm not going to go back to the Big Bang about the creation of everything. Let's start on the creation of umuntu. Yeah, I've said this before, ukuthi when umuntu is created initially, he is made into 4 shades, primarily 4 shades of the soil, because ukwakhiwa kwakho, you are fashioned from the fabric of this planet because you are of this planet. You see, the other beings were fashioned from the fabric of where they came from. They are beings of fire. Now, anytime my angels need, they were fashioned from the flames. They are beings of light, and now for them, my angel nitini, ama seraphim nani akuhlukanisa ama archangel sindlala laba bangazi nabo bakhuluma ngani. They were fashioned from the light. That's their quality. When because you are fashioned from the earth, you exhibit the different shades and qualities of inhlabathi, the earth. Inhlabathi ke evundile yokuqala kwaba ile emnyama. And then you have abantu abamnyama, dark people. Bese bakhona inhlabathi ethi ayibe yellow. So you have your yellow people. Bese bakhona inhlabathi ethi ayibe njengesihlabathi. Then you have your those light khakhish people. Bese bakhona inhlabathi eyisibovu. Niyazazi lezi inhlabathi. Then you have your red people. Those are the original 4. You're looking at the base, base model of it. That's right. Savusela. So ngisho kanjalo, you must understand ukuthi with these 4, there are pairings that come together. So if Opera creator is creating low unhlabathi emnyama, he would make it a point to create an opposite of him, ongoskazi. And this is why you have all these variations of ama colors of the native peoples. The native people tend to have these 4 primary colors, and they vary from there. From these 4, you could say these are dominant traits, as they put it in the biology. So from these 4 dominant traits, you get all the other variations. You understand? That's why if you take a Chinese person who mix an umuntu, the attributes of the Chinese will never die out. They'll stay there because they are both dominant attributes. Now, because when you go through this whole racial thing, it's very funny. Ukuthi kunomlungu owabhala wathi ehlukanisa abantu abamnyama laba abantshontsha la. Usethi kubona kunama Negroes and then kunama Africans. Ama-Africans ase-Africa cannot have iy'nwele njengalaba base ababathatha ababalethe e-America, so the Negroes can grow an afro. Ubona ukuthi malo uyazi uvele ubona ukuthi lapho ngicabanga ukuthi madoda siyabazi abantu sihlale nabo siphakathi kwabo. I-afro siyazi khona la from proper natural Vaseline blue silk girls. So ubuka ukuthi yes abelungu, but ke asingagxili kakhulu lokho. Singena nonkukhu. Sibonge ngenibona la kuma comments ukuthi hayi nisaphila madoda. Sibonga kakhulu igumkani. So from these 4 dominant things, now you can go and do research in science abelungu and see what they have to say about it. I'm trying to tell you from going to the beginning and seeing and meeting all these 4 patriarchs, or Baba Ben Bukal, and they have particular names, but what is essential is knowing that all 4 of them are Bantu. You see, and this in particular should tell you ukuthi there are places of nativity emhlabeni ezahlukene. It's not just ukuthi there are people who were created in Africa and then they migrated out. No, kuya ngezinhlabathi zakhona. Abakhandwa ngeinhlabathi ezibovu baqhamuka lapho la kuneyinhlabathi ezibovu khona kakhulu. You can tell by the attributes of that land. If you go to the United States there, you can see lapha ku Grand Canyon uyibona ukuthi no, ama shades ala. And then they call them copper. They call them copper colored people labelungu masho njalo. Asazi babekuthathe lo. And then you come to Africa, you can tell ukuthi the dominant especially central all the way down sub-Saharan, with the dominant soil is a dark, rich one. You see, even if you go to South America, they have a rainforest, but in rainforest there you can find it was man-made in terms of they would literally fertilize the land by burning the grass and all those things. So there are layers of the soil to make it rich, but it was not really rich, though people did a lot of terraforming there, which essentially means that if we wanted to, we could do a terraforming on the Sahara and bring it back to its natural state of being a rainforest as it used to be. So we are told you have these red people, and they like to call them Indians, which is fine. Now, every single place on the planet has natives are called the Aboriginal people everywhere, and you find ukuthi everywhere in those different places kunenhlabathi yakhona emnyama, and because inenhlabathi yakhona emnyama bakhona abantu abamnyama who are originals. You see, njengoba nathi la in Africa bekhona abantu abamnyama bese kuba khona abantu abamnyama abakhamba nenhlabathi eyellow, the Kwekam people, the Twa people, you can name them. And ubabuke futhi uthi they have the same attributes as the Ku people of China and Asia. If you follow that, I tend to say uthi labo bantu labo, I like to group them. It means okay, abakaKhu malo laba with their small eyes. If you've seen abantu bakhu malo, they tend to have these eyes, and even a shape yobuso tends to be very Asiatic. So bakhona abantu bakhu malo, kusho mina ngithi abakho malo. So you're not probably gonna get this from somewhere else. Mina ngithi abakho malo. You can go and dispute nabelungu nenza ama-sciences and you'll come back to the same conclusion. These people are one in the same tribe. But bonke labo bantu, even sebele kube Asia bekhuluma lento yabo ni hao nani those people are still black people. Babodwa abantu who don't belong to this planet. Siyabasi. Babodwa. It's not confusing. It's not confusing at all. Just one tiny little group of people. They are not natives in this planet anyway. Bayazi nabo. Even in the Caucasus Mountains that they talk about, when you go and dig there, uzofica uthola abantu abamnyama bakhona who are originals, who are natives there. They might not look like me and you, but they match the soil of that area. And you find ukuthi this is why umuntu nje, for example, ufana nami nje la, I could have definite links and lineage going all the way from the Khans who were marauding there, all the way down to the Tasmanians, the Australian Aborigines, and come back to the Red Indians there. Thola ukuthi nginemndeni kuyo yonke lo ndawo leyo. It's not a surprising thing. It's basically we've been here long enough for that to happen. And the interactions and interrelationships with each other made it very easy and very obvious. And they don't talk about that, ngoba you barely ever hear them talking about a trade that was going on between the Arabs and the African, trading gold, trading cowrie shells and all those things. It's a footnote in their historical investigations, because they don't want you to remember ukuthi global trade kade yabakhona. And understanding from what I saw, abantu abamnyama were so advanced that to go in between continents, we didn't need to traverse ngemshini. Didn't have to ride them horses, didn't have to walk. We had the ability to literally, you could call it teleportation. There are certain areas in the land where you will walk into, come another part of the continent, of the planet, no problem. So even kunjalo kukhona ama-natives in every different place on the planet, uzothola ukuthi kukhona futhi la ke kwafika khona abantu abamnyama who tend to be localized somewhere else. Good. Because we go to the other part of the myth is that the yeah, as I was saying, yeah, the Black Empire was an international empire. It was a global empire. It had what you might call it, colony, not really colonies, what do we call it, Gambe? Provinces across the planet, for example, if let's say you became the center of the empire, the capital, then you will have a ruler who is set to rule Asia. Then there'll be a ruler who's set to rule the North America, and then there'll be one in South America, then there'll be one in the southern parts, that are Australia and Australasia. And this informs the reality of having these structures as finite all over the planet. The pyramids that you find in the Giza, the same pyramids you're going to find everywhere else on the planet. They keep finding them. And they are baffled with how. And they obviously they will never make a connection with but these are the same people. Like I said, it will take for there is one pyramid in the Sahara that was like right at the beginning. It was done to represent this different kingdoms within the empire. And then you have Gulona, you have all these different hieroglyphics that are attributed. If there's the Aztecs, there's writing from the Aztecs, there's writing from the Japanese and the Chinese, there's writing from the ancient hieroglyphics of Egypt, of the black people. So it's all in one pyramid. It was there to commemorate. And by the way, it is situated at a place where it was like a interchange. So it's like an international, hub where everyone who is coming from anywhere who wants to come to the center of the empire will go there. And it goes without saying that this Black Empire, which ruled the earth, was one of the most powerful ones, because from it you don't see signals of mass wars and famines and death as you would see with this one, because there's too many wars and all kinds of destruction. It was an empire that had exhibited less of the evil, because it was based more on the use of intellectuality and ideology and mutual understanding and cooperation. Whereas this empire now that is trying to mimic that, because that's all they were doing. They knew that there was an empire that preceded them, so they tried to replicate them. Otherwise, they were not going to do something that was never done before. And the only way they know how to do things is by, unaliving everyone. That's the thing about lezi ngane. Yonke into abafuna ukuyenza bona ihamba nokubulala. So Obviously, it makes sense what they would do that because they do not have the quality of being natives on this planet by any way. So the only way they could establish anything is by oppressing the natives and forcing them to accept them. And if you remember, I've said it before, it's not the first time we're dealing with this kind of people. They are at version 4, version 5. They used to be quite bad and smelly before. So that's one of the part of the empire that ruled the world, and that's where this sense of we was this, we was that kind of comes from. I understand that, but what we need to accept is the fact that whoever those emperors and kings were, we are the ones who sold them out. We handed our empire to our enemies. And we need to ask ourselves the question is, how do we go back? Because the enemy is not going to help us go back there. Why would it help them? How would it help them to help us get back there? Why would it help them to give us all the information to remember? And they would rather erase us entirely and imagine things like aliens built the pyramids. They would rather do that, but they ain't found no carcass of any alien anywhere. And I was laughing, I was going through I think X, and some white guy was talking about the Tartarian kingdoms, and I'm like, these people, are they that slow? Because if you're saying Tartarian, I mean, Tartarian definitely means something black. I mean, the foundation of the word tar is a black substance. So they are looking for this black kingdom. No, they're imagining that Tatar means something. But yes, we are the so-called the kingdom of hey, banala amagama abelungu basebenzisayo for lezi zinto uma benga-understand. Atlantis, le Atlantis abayifunayo ileyo empire ke leyo, and it's not that it disappeared, we sold it off. And that's a story of black people, and anywhere you find them, they suffer the same issue and the same problems, the same challenges. And here's the thing about it is, when we sold off this empire, we became beings that are, especially the main house, because I would say the black house is the main house. They assumed a quality of pure ones. There is a specific purity that you find in our people. There's a specific quality of originality and natureness. So abantu abamnyama, I would tend to agree with the people who use the term ukuthi they are abangoni. Now, here's why I'll say that, is that when we relinquished the empire and control over the planet, we seem to have returned to the basics of living in the earth, with the earth, and allowing it to nature us. We transcended the desire for externalization of actualization. Ubona sengathi somewhere we went and progressed and then hit the pinnacle of innovation and expertise. I mean, judging by the things that we built, that cannot be emulated today without any power stations or machinery. We did things that got people imagining aliens and giants and all that crazy nonsense that they're talking about. That's just how serious we were in terms of ability. So walento le of what is umuntu lies with us. There are secrets that we embody and we know, and we have hidden away about the human being. Put this in quotation mark, because when you say human being, you literally mean something else. But in this, for the purpose of understanding each other, I want us to generalize it as what we would say. I mean, for our people who don't understand, isn't umuntu. There's a specific quality of umuntu that we have and understand and are keeping secret from the other people. This is why they just can't seem to understand what the hell were these people up to. How did they do these intrinsic things? Highly specialized, highly technological. And they try to find evidence of abelungu somewhere there. They just cannot seem to. Because they know it has nothing to do with them. So if they can't find themselves in those things, it must be aliens, it must be giants, but they can't find giants anyway. So that's what we are talking about when we're talking about black people. So we went that far and developed systems to traverse the universe, because, by the way, la master-gates abafuna yakhona phela la master-gates abafuna. You can go through one today. You can go through a Stargate. If you know how to use it, you can go. But they don't have the knowledge. They don't possess the key. Abanayo. You can go through a Stargate today and you end up somewhere in the universe and meet other beings. And that's black people. Yeah. They are sitting there trying to invent a Stargates than cracking their heads, hoping for some alien to come and show them. They're not going to pull it off without any black people. And they know this. This is why they were trying to get you into a science and all those things. But then they realized, no, giving these people into the science and encouraging them to do the science, they're going to bump into something that's going to help them remember who they are. And they're going to go and dominate us. So this is why initially they wanted you to nifunde. But then they realized they can't let you go crazy with it, so they control it. And was kufunda cool. They can't let you take over the thing, because this is why I say to you previously, Uti, you must understand, Uti, there are things that they are going to encourage you, and you must question those things. Why are they okay with these ones? The music, the sex, the you know, the alcoholism, the partying, they are literally willing to let you do that. The sports, athletics, they are very much for you. Yeah, it's the best footballer. Yeah, champions, the fastest man on the planet. Yeah, they're willing and they are very much interested, and they spend a lot of money in encouraging you in those things. So you must ask yourself, why would they be okay with those things? But other matters of importance, they don't want you in there. Yini le ebathusayo? Yini le ebathusayo ngayo? See, it's interesting to see clearly nama enemies that understand who we are when we don't understand who we are ourselves. And we don't bother to understand who we are. We are busy going around, we was kings, we was this. And they even make it a joke because you are a joke about it as well. If you were kings, you were this, then act like it. You don't have to tell anyone that we was this. You can just act like it and show them. Yeah, we was kings on this planet. So the myth of it is that, yes, of course, we ruled this planet, no problem. Unassisted, independently. And then wafika lezi zinto lezi ezafika ke. Zingaqali futhi ukufika. You know. And the tragedy of it is that whatever is happening to us, it's a payback. It's a payback. We were given a task. Sakhetha ukuthi sibe greedy and corrupt. Sibe sikhombisa unyoko-ke laba. Silanje because we got greedy and corrupt. Yeah. But yes, back to the point of being abangoni. So you find we retracted back from this cutting edgeness. Sabuya, sakhanda izindlu zatshani nodaka. We kept everything simple. We went from ungboza singabambo. So qala sabuyela emuva sadonsa izikhumba manje. Sambathe izikhumba zeenkomo nana. Sesibuya kude le kumalinen. Sibuya le kude kuma cotton nani. Yonke lento le fabric bayifundiswa yithi. Sayeka sahlehla sabuyela emuva. You know. Injalo nje. This is I'm kidding. Even this is why you find ukuthi abantu abamnyama invent cotton. Abantu abamnyama go further and invent fabric jean. That jean ebabengenayo ebilungu, that type of fabric eqinile, inventwa ama-slaves in the cotton fields. Njengamanje nina nithi fashion, logo yakho is an insult to umuntu omnyama because they put those two horses pulling apart a jean. And if you understand the history of our people in that place, your bondage is that it must have been a black person wearing the jean. And what they used to do to ama-slaves, babewahlukumeza, bewabulala, babedonsa kanjeyana. Banjwe ilimbu ngapha, iboshwe lehashini, banjwe ilimbu ngapha, iboshwe lehashini. ashawa amahashi uzihlukane phakathi nendawo. It was one of the torture methods. They took that and made it into a logo. And the black people don't recognize that. They think it's about the strength of a fabrication. Denim was an invention of the slaves. Belaphan. And babengayigqoka belungu because it was into egqokwa iziqila. Ube denim le uyohlala nayo uzoshona because you didn't get any income to buy any clothes. That's the history of that denim thing. And uyibona futhi beze beyidayisa bethanda ukuyidayisa iphashile. It's because vele yayigcina iphashe kanjeyana ngoba wakuba into yakho wedwa. Ugqoke yona yodwa kuze kuyovalwa uzungcwatshwe nayo. We was kings, but nehlezi la entanyeni emkhaza yamaJuda, getting anything and everything from your innovations. When are you going to act like kings? So we went far, cutting edge, and ideas just come naturally. Brilliant people. And then we retracted back and we went back to the earth. So when we became Amangoni, which then makes me wonder, was it a form of atonement? If it was a form of atonement, that means at some point the soul squabo siyaphela. Masiphela lesquabo. Are these people safe? Nah, because we're gonna have to get in the business of getting justice. There's the myth of blackness. Everybody owes us something. Everybody. Akekho nje ongasikweleti thina. Unfortunately. Akekho nje ongasikweleti. If we are being really, really honest, ayikho ngasikweleti. And abasikweleti imali, basikweleti igazi. Ayikho nje imali abangasikhokhela yona. Akukho mali abangasikhokhela yona. So that's the myth of blackness. I'm trying to introduce this topic. I'm definitely going to refine it because I want us to get into the history. Yemvelaphi yethu nokuthi where we are and how we are. Because some of the guys a group in will send me a private text, to tell me, hey, I saw you ufake igab ye-emperor yase-China and it was an ancient time. I could sense, no man, this is Asia. I'm like, yeah. Of course, there was a black man ruling in China. It's one of the provinces of an empire. The Chinese know that they're black. They're not confused about it. They know that they are black, but they might have an issue now because so Africa abanye abantu and told them ukuthi bangcono because they look like they have a lighter shade. The Jade Emperor was a black man. He was as black as aces of spades, man. The great Khan, that man who is supposed to be the Khan, who they claim they can't find Itumbi, it's not because they can't find. Sengivala, I want to say ukuthi you have to be cognizant and full of wonder of the reality ukuthi how is it that emhlabeni people can't seem to go about doing anything, without igazi lomuntu. Everything that has been done or needed doing is required foundationally kube khona umuntu omnyama phakathi. Everybody. And if it tells you ukuthi they know very well, they are very clear and they're very sure ukuthi if you need something done, you need to nabantu fanele ubathinte. So now we'll talk sometime about umsebenzi walezangane lezana zesinagoge kaSathane and how ba-convince lezi ezinye to do ama-rituals enkohlakalo ukuze bagaine or build empire. And if you know izinto zabathakathi, it would make sense then ukuthi uthwebule abantu abawubusa umhlaba ukuze ubusa umhlaba. This is the main reason why they are so obsessed with you and ukusoconga kangaka. This is the only reason. There's the only reason why they are so obsessed about ukusoconga ama-Afrika. Bayazi, they know. But yeah, lezo so bazokhokha kabuhlungu. And laba abanye bomndeni, the yellow ones, the red ones, akade bebukela kwenziwa lento kuthina, sebeqalile vele bayakhokha and they're going extinct. Bayabhonywa ke nje, ngibuka nje i-situation eJapan. Sebengakhuluma nje bakuthandayo, it's bad. And soyibona ilandela iKorea, kulandela iChina. Busy bayenza yonke lento ama-military, but they're not watching ukuthi in terms of reproduction, they are not going to be able to replace their population. Boneke ukuthi ke i-curse ehambisana nokubukela kugangwa ngabantu bakini and become part of it. Abanye abakaze bakubone ke nokuthula ke since bayenza imkhuba le. Qoba amabhomu every day. Silokwathi inhlo. Because they allowed themselves to be part and parcel. Befakwa ngekhanda ilezingane ezikhonza uSathane emhlabeni. Yeah, but yeah, we will talk about the Jews in a later date. Because angifuni kube sengathi ngithi mhlambe bayasonda noma bayasukela, but we need to look at the reality ukuthi bona isandla sabo sihamba sifike phi la. Angisasho ukuthi ke ngisho ama-Jews lawa original, sengisho laba abayibiza ngamaJuda manje. Essentially, I say ama-Druids because I understand ukuthi they are coming from that coven kaMerlin. Lesa squad sikaMerlin lapha noMelize yibo laba bathakathi. And they know this, they know themselves. Bayazi futhi ukuthi lento abathi bayikhonza imalana nani. But angifuni kube sengathi manje ngigqugquzela ukuthi ke mhlambe nibabuke otherwise, but we will talk about futhi ayikakhulu, because the reality of the situation ukuthi behind everything there's them. njengoba ngikhuluma indaba ye-Levi's, and it's very strange to me ukuthi how they are seemingly always at the right place and the right time to benefit from in sweat, blood and tears abantu abamnyama. Always. Take the music business, for example. From the blues up until now, check ukuthi obani who have been making the money. Bengakwazi ngisho ukukhanda music for that matter. So you go even further back, you say, who was owning the slave ships and profiting of selling black bodies? So ilabo bantu who said to these other ones, no, it's okay to do this to these ones. Do this to these ones ukuze nithole dominion over the planet. Bangabatshela ukuthi ke it will come at a very serious cost. I mean, obviously vele ke osathane akase babatshela iqiniso abantwana babo. Bayazi ukuthi what's coming, but they are trying to build this thing and defeat the inevitable. That's the unfortunate part. Kulukhuni bayingane kasathane ngoba uphila ngamanga. I'm very sad for them, shame yazi. Uthi angibazwele but ukukhohlakala sebekwenzile. Ukukhohlakala nje sebekwenzile sokukuningi kakhulu. So personally mina angingeni lezi zinto zokumaxolelana. I don't have time. Indaba zokuxolela abantu abenza izinto ngamabomu benza futhi bephindelela. I'm not even going to be. So yeah, I guess ivali lapho kwamanje the myth. We will get to it sometime later. Maybe I'll give it a month after camp because I want to collate it kahle and make it more cogent. Moba, I want it to be something that the children can look at and take from Bahambe Bio investigator further. Because I don't think we're going to be able to cover everything in this time spaces in us. Impilo is not long enough to do everything. So we'll do as much as we can. And then the children will continue. Yeah. But into engilwa nayo kakhulu mina, I think that's one of my biggest fights is that angifuni lento yeni ukuthi ke nilale ubuthongo. Nilala kakhulu ubuthongo. Kube kudlalwa ngathi la nilele nina. And into ebuhlungu ukuthi laba abaphapha mase bezama ukwenza something inina futhi enibavimbayo. Ngoba anifuni baniphazamise ebuthongweni beni. Inkinga nje esibhekene nayo. Lokuba sengathi manje abantu abanyama cannot unite wara. Cha. Abantu abanyama they can unite if they wake up. If they can wake up. So yeah, I'm looking here at indaba Rudolf van Gelder, who is another Jew who was very much involved in the jazz thing. He was an engineer for most of jazz artists, including the hip hop, early hip hop days. So he's a renowned audio engineer, and it's interesting ukuthi abantu have having a sound engineer who is Yiddish kodwa angakaze enze music by himself. One wonders, why would they be so involved in the making of the music when they don't have the gift of music? And they were profiting kakhulu namanje, and they're still profiting kakhulu into music. And that's why I was saying to you, be careful ukuthi what is it that they encourage you on. They are very comfortable with encouraging you with this thing for music. It's not something new. They've been doing for a very long time. And knowing these types, they are never comfortable with seeing umuntu omnyama excel in anything. It's just not in their nature to watch you excel. So it tells you that there's something off with this particular thing. If they can allow you to excel, then be happy that you're excelling and be comfortable when their nature tells them that they are superior. Aye. But I'm just saying, watch out and have a good evening. Insobonana, uthanda ukuthula nenjabulo, ukhanya makubekeni amnathiba.